Welcome to Audiobook 365 Stories.
Old Anthony Rockwall, a retired businessman and owner of Rockwall's Eureka Soap, looked out the window of his big house on Fifth Avenue and smiled. His neighbor on the right, G. Van Schullite Suffolk Jones, a rich and important man, came out to his car, wrinkling his nose, as usual, at the Italian-style statue in front of Anthony's house. "That stuck-up old statue doesn't do anything," said the ex-soap king. "If he's not careful, the museum will take that old frozen statue away. I'll paint this house red, white, and blue next summer and see if that makes his big nose turn up even more." Then Anthony Rockwall, who never liked using doorbells, went to the door of his library and shouted, "Mike!" in the loud voice he used when he worked in Kansas. "Tell my son," Anthony said to the servant who came, "to come here before he leaves the house." When young Rockwall entered the library, the old man put down his newspaper, looked at him with a kind but serious face, messed up his white hair with one hand, and rattled the keys in his pocket with the other. "Richard," said Anthony Rockwall, "how much do you pay for the soap that you use?" Richard, who had only been home from college for 6 months, was a little surprised. He still didn't fully understand his father, who was always surprising him. $6 for 12 bars, I think, Dad. And your clothes? I guess about $60 usually. You're a gentleman, said Anthony with confidence. I've heard of young men spending $24 for 12 bars of soap and over $100 for clothes. You have as much money to waste as they do, but you still choose what is simple and reasonable. Now, I use the old Eureka soap not just because I like it, but because it's the purest soap made. Whenever you pay more than 10 cents for a bar of soap, you're just paying for bad perfumes and labels. But spending 50 cents is good enough for a young man like you, with your background and situation. As I said, you're a gentleman. They say it takes 3 generations to make a gentleman. But they're wrong. Money can do it just as easily. Money has made you a gentleman. By golly, this almost made one of me too. I'm almost as rude and unpleasant as the 2 old rich men who live on each side of me and can't sleep at night because I bought the house between them. There are some things that money can't do, said young Rockwall a bit sadly. Now, don't say that, said old Anthony, surprised. I believe in money every time. I've looked through the whole encyclopedia trying to find something money can't buy, and I might have to check the appendix next week. I believe in money more than anything else. Tell me one thing that money won't buy. For one thing, answered Richard, feeling a bit angry. It won't buy you into the special groups of society. Oh, really? Won't it? Shouted the old man who loved money. Tell me where your special groups would be if the first Astor didn't have the money to pay for his ticket to come to America. Richard sighed. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about, said the old man more quietly. That's why I asked you to come in. Something is bothering you, son. I've noticed it for 2 weeks. Tell me what it is. I could probably get my hands on $11 million within 24 hours, plus the real estate. If it's your health, the Rambler is down in the bay, ready to go to the Bahamas in 2 days. Not a bad guess, Dad. You're close, Richard replied. Ah, said Anthony sharply. What's her name? Richard began to walk back and forth on the library floor. There was enough friendship and understanding in his rough old father to make him want to share his feelings. Why don't you ask her? The old man demanded. She'll say yes. You've got the money, the looks, and you're a good boy. Your hands are clean. You don't even have Eureka soap on them. You've been to college, but she'll overlook that. I haven't had a chance, said Richard. Make one, said Anthony. Take her for a walk in the park, or a ride, or walk her home from church. A chance. Come on. You don't understand how society works, Dad. She's part of that world. Every hour and minute of her time is planned days in advance. I need to be with that girl, Dad, or this city will feel like a swamp forever. And I can't write her a letter. I can't do that. Bah, said the old man. Are you telling me that with all the money I have, you can't get an hour or two of a girl's time? I've waited too long. She's leaving for Europe at noon the day after tomorrow for 2 years. I'll see her alone tomorrow evening for just a few minutes. She's at Larchmont now at her aunt's house. I can't go there, but I'm allowed to meet her with a cab at the Grand Central Station tomorrow evening when the 8:30 train arrives. We'll drive down Broadway quickly to Wallack's Theatre, where her mother and some friends will be waiting for us in the lobby. Do you think she would listen to a love confession from me during those 6 or 8 minutes in those circumstances? No. And what chance would I have at the theater or afterward? None. No, Dad, this is one problem that your money can't solve. We can't buy even 1 minute of time with cash. If we could, rich people would live longer. There's no way I'll get a chance to talk to Miss Lantry before she leaves. All right, Richard, my boy, said old Anthony cheerfully. You can go on down to your club now. I'm glad it's not your health. But don't forget to give a little thanks to the god of money from time to time. You say money won't buy time? Well, you can't order forever to be delivered to your door. But I've seen time move slower when there's a lot of money around. That night, Aunt Ellen, who was kind, sentimental, wrinkled, and weighed down by wealth, came to talk to Brother Anthony while he was reading his evening paper. She started talking about the problems of love. He told me all about it, said Brother Anthony, yawning. I told him he could use my money if he needed it. And then he started saying that money couldn't help. He said that even the rules of society couldn't be changed by 10 millionaires. Oh, Anthony, sighed Aunt Ellen. I wish you didn't think so much about money. Wealth means nothing when it comes to true love. Love is the most powerful thing. If only he had spoken earlier, she couldn't have said no to our Richard. But now I'm afraid it's too late. He won't have a chance to talk to her. All your money can't bring happiness to your son. At 8 o'clock the next evening, Aunt Ellen took out an old gold ring from a worn-out case and gave it to Richard. Wear it tonight, nephew, she asked. Your mother gave it to me. She said it brought good luck in love. She told me to give it to you when you found the one you love. Young Rockwall took the ring with respect and tried it on his smallest finger. It slipped as far as the second joint and stopped. He took it off and put it in his vest pocket, like many men do. Then he called for his cab. At the station, he found Miss Lantry in the busy crowd at 8:32. We mustn't keep Mom and the others waiting, she said. To Wallack's Theatre as fast as you can drive, said Richard eagerly. They rushed up 42nd Street to Broadway, and then down the bright, starlit road that goes from the soft evening sky to the morning light. At 34th Street, young Richard quickly opened the little door in the roof and told the cab driver to stop. I've dropped a ring, he said as he got out. It was my mother's, and I'd hate to lose it. I won't take long. I saw where it fell. In less than a minute, he was back in the cab with the ring. But in that short time, a crosstown car had stopped right in front of the cab. The driver tried to go left, but a big delivery wagon blocked him. He tried to go right, but had to back away from a furniture truck that shouldn't have been there. He tried to back out, but dropped his reins and cursed under his breath. He was stuck in a tangled mess of vehicles and horses. One of those street blockades had happened, the kind that suddenly stops everything in the big city. Why don't you drive on? Said Miss Lantry impatiently. We'll be late. Richard stood up in the cab and looked around. He saw a crowded mess of wagons, trucks, cabs, vans, and streetcars filling the huge space where Broadway, 6th Avenue, and 34th Street cross each other, like a too small dress squeezing someone in too tightly. And still, more vehicles were hurrying from all the cross streets, speeding toward the crowded spot, locking wheels, and adding their drivers' angry shouts to the noise. The whole traffic of Manhattan seemed to be stuck around them. Even the oldest New Yorker among the thousands of people watching on the sidewalks had never seen a street blockade this big. "I'm very sorry," said Richard as he sat back down. "But it looks like we're stuck. They won't clear up this mess in an hour. It was my fault. If I hadn't dropped the ring, Let me see the ring," said Miss Lantry. "Now that we can't do anything about it, I don't mind. I think theaters are boring, anyway." At 11 o'clock that night, someone knocked lightly on Anthony Rockwall's door. "Come in," shouted Anthony, who was wearing a red dressing gown and reading a book about pirates. The person who came in was Aunt Ellen, looking like an angel with gray hair who had been left on Earth by mistake. "They're engaged, Anthony," she said softly. "She has promised to marry our Richard." On their way to the theater, there was a street blockade, and it took 2 hours before their cab could move again. "And oh, Brother Anthony, please don't ever brag about the power of money again. A small symbol of true love, a little ring that stood for unending and unselfish love, was the reason our Richard found his happiness. He dropped it in the street and got out to pick it up, and before they could go on, the blockade happened. He spoke to his love and won her heart while the cab was stuck in traffic. Money is worthless compared to true love, Anthony." "All right," said old Anthony. "I'm glad the boy got what he wanted. I told him I wouldn't spare any expense if. But, Brother Anthony, what good could your money have done?" "Sister," said Anthony Rockwall, "I've got my pirate in a terrible situation. His ship has just been sunk, and he's too smart to let himself drown when he knows the value of money. I wish you would let me finish this chapter. The story should end here. I wish it could, just as much as you who are reading it wish it could. But we must get to the bottom of things to find the truth." The next day, a man with red hands and a blue polka dot necktie, who called himself Kelly, came to Anthony Rockwall's house and was immediately shown into the library. "Well," said Anthony, reaching for his checkbook, "it was a good batch of soap. Let's see, you had $5,000 in cash." "I spent $300 more of my own money," said Kelly. "I had to go a bit above the estimate. I got most of the express wagons and cabs for $5 each, but the trucks and two-horse teams mostly cost me $10. The streetcar drivers wanted $10, and some of the loaded trucks $20. The police officers charged me the most, $1.50 for 2 of them, and the rest $20 and $25. But didn't it work beautifully, Mr. Rockwall? I'm glad William A. Brady didn't see that little outdoor traffic jam scene. I wouldn't want William to be jealous. And no rehearsal either. The boys were on time to the exact second. It was 2 hours before anything could move past Greeley's statue. 1300, "Here you go, Kelly," said Anthony, tearing off a check. "Your $1,000 and the $300 you spent. You don't hate money, do you, Kelly?" "Me?" said Kelly. "I can beat up the man who invented poverty." Anthony called Kelly back when he was at the door. "You didn't see," said Anthony. "In the traffic jam, a kind of chubby boy without any clothes on, shooting arrows with a bow, did you?" "Why, no," said Kelly, confused. "I didn't. If he was like you say, maybe the police arrested him before I got there." "I thought the little rascal wouldn't show up," chuckled Anthony. "Goodbye, Kelly."